for everybody else to see. And everybody that's watching the live stream, hey, thanks for coming and watching. Good to see you. We've got lots of great speakers coming up. Tri-State Freethinkers is going to have pizza here at about 1:30, and they'll set up a table, and it's absolutely free for everyone to eat. There is a jar that says Tri-State Freethinkers. You can make a donation if you want, and and whatever projects the Tri-State Freethinkers got going on. We couldn't have done this without them. Jim isn't here yet, I don't guess, but we'll make sure everybody gets to see Jim when Jim gets here. He likes to talk to everybody. Yeah, we got lots of great stuff, and obviously I'm not much of a speaker, so which goes great with the YouTube channel, I have to say. But we've got Chris Mallard from Daily Egg This Morning Show is going to kind of host this thing, and we'll get our speakers going, and let's get going. Chris Mallard, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Man, look at all these beautiful people, all these non-believers. Sinners? Do we have any blasphemers in the audience? Blasphemers? Okay, good. Any sinners? Okay, good. This is like being in hell. Between the heat and the company. Okay, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. As you know, we're here to protest the Ark Encounter, and we want to support the separation of church and state and all that great business. I'm not going to go into those things too much because we have our wonderful speakers here to do that for us. Matter of fact, I'm going to call up Ember now. Ember's going to come up here and visit with us. This is Ember from the Better Than Ember channel. Don't hit that camera. I'll be all over you like ugly on a stick. Here's Ember. Thank you, Ember. Oh, so nice to have you. Ember is leaving. She's got to go do that voodoo that she does somewhere else. So I'm going to let you give us your stick. Thank you very much.
Alrighty. All right, folks, you have to bear with me. I didn't have a chance to memorize my speech, so I'm double fisting today. It'll be fun.
Yay for double fist.
Absolutely. Play your big flag. Great start, Ember. Okay, let's just do the thing, shall we? Friends, allies, defenders of reason. We gather today not to oppose faith, but to oppose fraud. Not to silence religion, but to stop its weaponization against the common good. When the creationist ministry violates tax law to impose a dogmatic conspiracy theory in place of science, it's not just a legal crime. It's moral theft. They steal from students the right to ask questions, from teachers the right to evidence, from society the diversity of thought that drives progress. This isn't about evolutionism versus Genesis. It's about authoritarianism versus humanity. 9 years ago, the Tri-State Freethinkers showed up to protest this monstrosity and all that it represents. Not atheists, though we do have some notable representatives that meet that description with us here today, but secular people. There are people of faith with us here today. People who believe in a god or gods, but also believe no one religion has the right to control the lives of everyone else. No Muslim should be telling Christians when to pray. No Baptist should be demanding Catholics forego communion. No evangelical should be censoring the gods of the Hindus. Religious people understand and value the necessity of the separation of church and state because it exists for their protection too. We also have a few individuals here with us with unique perspectives. John, the skeptic, who presents the absurdity of harmful beliefs like those taught in that park in a comedic way. Chris Mallard, our MC, who joins comedy and critical thinking every morning and fosters a sense of community for us all who are so far removed in geography. Hemet Mehta, who helps keep us informed about what's happening in our world. Godless Granny, Kelly, who encourages us to live our lives. Godless Engineer, John Gleason, who teaches us how to be brave enough to stand up and use your voice. Mandisa Thomas, who helps so many of the marginalized find our voices. Dr. J. Bundy, who believes in science with a fire that sometimes burns the unwary who try to use religion to scam innocent people. Secular Rarity, who can present logic and philosophy in a way any layperson can understand. Joe and Jess, our main organizers, who quite literally are bringing people together. And so many others. Even me. I'm not anybody special. Sure, I can say things about myself that might sound impressive. Like many of you, I'm a parent. Like Dr. Bundy, I've got too many diplomas and get unreasonably excited over science. Like Mandisa, I try to give a voice to people like me who are marginalized. Trans and intersex people in my case. Like Hemet, I try to bring people news that they aren't getting from elsewhere. Like SR, I try to communicate in a way that connects. And like Joe, Jess, and all the volunteers who made today possible, I try my best to do all I can for the community. I believe in a diversity of voices, a chorus, if you will, like all those gathered here today. I often say we need as many voices, as many perspectives and experiences and bursts of inspiration as we can get, because you never know what spark is going to ignite in a person's heart and set them free from the lies and the control of conspiracy theories like young Earth creationism. That's the difference between us and what's taught in that monument to a horror story. We value diversity of thought. We value disagreement. That's how we learn when we're wrong, so we can stop being wrong. We value learning new things, not shutting them out, because that's how we get smarter, do better, and grow as a community and a culture and a civilization. But up in that boat, it's just the opposite. Don't question, don't speak unless it's what you've been told to say. Don't step out of line, or else. We are a library with hundreds of books full of thousands of tales of experiences of every kind. They offer only one book, just one story. But what really crosses the line is their efforts to ban all the other books and use taxpayer money to do it. That isn't even a metaphor. They literally try to ban books. But it's just a proxy. The specific books they try to ban are the books that tell of different ways to be human. What they really want to ban is knowledge we are here as a stepping stone to banning us. They are bound and determined to burn down the library, so it can only be that one book for everyone forever. They try to silence the chorus, so only their one voice can be heard, commanding all to obey. They say they're defending the faith, pretending that Christianity is under attack, despite the fact they have all the money, all the power, all the branches of government, and feel so secure in that cultural domination they aren't even pretending to obey the laws anymore. They're funneling tax money directly into that abomination of a church, and they're using that ministry to try to make their doctrine actual law, even as they try with their agents to undermine and ignore the very laws our constitutional republic was founded on. When Answers in Genesis pushes money from Kentucky taxpayers into political lobbying, or pseudoscience textbooks, or homeschooling programs to indoctrinate children, they betray the very pluralism that real religious freedom requires. Every medical breakthrough, every technological innovation, every revolution, whether scientific or cultural or literal, comes from diverse minds challenging orthodoxy. And that's exactly what creationist fundamentalism stifles. From Plato to Galileo to Scopes to Kitzmiller versus Dover, progress happens when we reject the tyranny of one true answer, especially when we know that answer is just something some guy made up. When we pretend to have all the answers, we stop looking for the real answers, don't we? They demand scripture in schools, but ignore scripture's own calls for justice. Thou shalt not steal. Exodus 20:15. Yet they steal tax dollars. Test everything. 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Yet they keep trying to ban critical thinking. AIG isn't about faith. It's about control. These authoritarians insist there is only one way, my way. They like to say it's God's way, but it always comes from one man saying what he wants and backing it up with cherry-picked passages from one specific interpretation of one specific translation of one particular holy book, indisputably written by men. They tell us, slaves, obey your masters. That's Holy Scripture. Unquestionable. History shows that progress comes from disagreement and the interplay of ideas. Different ideas. A forest with only one kind of tree will die immediately when a parasite arrives. An orchestra with only one instrument falls flat. Diversity brings strength, resilience, and helps the whole grow and become greater than any single specimen ever could, no matter how superior some guy declares it to be. We stand today for a simple principle. No ideology matters more than people. No worldview gets to rewrite facts. No organization gets to ignore the laws. No fallible human gets to dictate truth, especially when that human stands to gain staggering amounts of money and power by doing so. We are parents. We are scientists. We are believers, and we are atheists of every race and gender and social class and region of this nation. Our diverse voices are a chorus of 1,000 notes, but today we join in a harmonic crescendo so that we might be heard over Ken Ham's $1 million megaphone and sing out, enough! The future has always come from embracing diversity, not dictating obedience. We are building that future, while they are building graven images to a fictional past that never even really existed. In that fake boat, I'd be shouted down and called all manner of things, I'm sure, and whatever I had to say would be dismissed out of hand, like anything else that doesn't already agree with the approved beliefs. But out here, I can speak, and I can be heard. Like each of you, I'm just a person, but we all deserve to have a voice. We all deserve to live. And the fact that is a controversial statement because of what's taught in that literal vessel of lies. So let us choose the symphony. Let us reject the fear that says difference is dangerous. Let us amplify voices that power tries to mute, not because it's right, but because it's how we survive and thrive. The next time someone claims unity requires uniformity, remember, a single note is not a song. A single story is not a library. And a single voice, no matter how loud, is not democracy. Today, we are emissaries of the chorus, and we are here to make some noise.
Appreciate it. I hope you have a safe trip. Ember has got to go do that voodoo again, as she does somewhere else. Thank you for that one of those.
Yeah, they're gonna fix
Get out of here. Off my stage, off my stage. All right, for our next speaker up here, we have Jay Bundy, right? Did I get it right? Man, I remembered something from all the way over there. Jay Bundy, he is a podcaster. This man has got some very interesting stuff. He's got a hug Ember because that's what we do. So, Jay Bundy, thank you for joining us today. Come up here. You all right? All right, there you go.
All right. Thanks so much for having me. Also want to thank the organizers for inviting me to speak. Let's see if I also didn't memorize my speech, so let's see if I can get through this. My name's Dr. Jay Bundy. I have a dual PhD in integrative biology and ecology, evolutionary biology, and behavior. I'm an experimental evolutionary biologist. I was trained in the lab with Dr. Richard Lenski at Michigan State University, where I contributed to the longest running evolution experiment in the history of science. I host the Pocket Locker 86 YouTube channel, and I co-host Black Freethinkers on the Skeptic Haven YouTube channel. I'm a scientist educator. I'm also a former youth minister, worship musician, and community organizer. I'm here today to show solidarity with everybody who is harmed by religious indoctrination, including myself, especially the ideas of the radical hate group masquerading as scholars known as Answers in Genesis. I'm not here today to tell you that creationism isn't scientific. We already know that. Any serious scientist knows that. Frankly, most people already know that, even if they pretend not to.
No problem.
This is not a debate. This is a protest. The Ark Encounter isn't about science. It's about ideology, control, and profit. And the people behind it aren't confused. They're calculated. They're building a parallel reality where faith is used to explain away facts and where the refusal to accept evidence is seen as a virtue. This is not about a difference of opinion. This is about a deliberate attempt to undermine scientific literacy and replace it with theological obedience. It's not just wrong, it's dangerous. This is not a debate. This is a protest. When I was in grad school studying evolutionary biology, my mother, who's still deeply Christian, asked me if I'd ever heard of the quote-unquote Creation Museum, like it was a legitimate institution, like it was offering answers. I had to explain to her, like, no, it's not a museum. It's a propaganda piece. It doesn't inform, it indoctrinates. And the most disturbing part was that she trusted it. She wanted to believe that something like this could help reconcile her beliefs with what I was studying. She was reaching for understanding, but instead of truth, she was handed a polished lie. Like the Creation Museum, this attraction exists to make people feel comfortable in a delusion. It's not for discovery, it's for emotional reassurance. It tells people you don't have to question, you don't need evidence, you're already right and everybody else is wrong. That reassurance is seductive. It's why these places make money. They are selling certainty in a world where certainty is in short supply. That's why this is not a debate. This is a protest. Answers in Genesis is just some cranky preacher shouting in the woods. They're a multi-million-dollar organization that leverages Christian identity, nostalgia, and fear to push an anti-science, anti-democracy, anti-human agenda. They know they're lying. They're just getting paid to do it. And they get tax breaks to boot. Think about that. They received public money while requiring employees to sign statements denying basic biology and affirming biblical literalism. Some of my fellow scientists would have told me not to come here today. They'd say I'm giving undue attention to ignorance. But this isn't ignorance, it's weaponized mythology. It's a business model built on denial and domination. There's another layer to this that doesn't get talked about enough, and that's religious narcissism. As a survivor of narcissistic abuse, I don't use that term lightly. But to believe you are uniquely deserving of eternity while others suffer eternally, that takes an extraordinary amount of self-importance. To worship a God who commands genocide, advocates the execution of queer people, and gave humanity a handbook for slavery, that takes either profound denial or a deep lack of empathy. AIG feeds this narcissism. They give people permission to believe they are righteous simply for believing that they are chosen, that everyone else is wrong, lost, depraved, damned. And they wrap it up with in a smiling theme park with petting zoos and animatronics. But at its core, it's about telling people you're right because you believe, everyone else is wrong because they don't. That's not humility, that's not faith, that is spiritual arrogance, and it is doing real harm. And if we don't call it out, not just in the classrooms, but in public, then we let it fester. We allow it to shape policy, to infect school boards, to silence teachers, to shape the minds of children before they ever meet a scientist. That's why this is not a debate. This is a protest. We have overwhelming evidence that these harmful ideas, especially the gender essentialism embedded in AIG's messaging and statement of faith, are not only wrong, they're actively dangerous. According to a 2022 study in CBE Life Sciences Education, students with queer genders report that gender essentialism in biology makes them feel erased, alienated, and unwelcome in the field. It's not just scientifically inaccurate, it's actively repelling future scientists from the discipline. And when we see these same ideas show up in the executive orders of the Trump administration, we know what time it is. AIG's statement of faith requires belief that God created people as either male or female, and that any identity outside of that binary is sinful and invalid. This message isn't just exclusionary, it's violent. It contributes to the erasure of trans and non-binary people in science and in society. So let me be absolutely clear. It is not true that there are only two genders. It is not true that we were all created male and female. And while we're at it, we need to stop pretending we were created at all. According to a 2024 national study, 37% of Americans still believe God created humans in our present form, being the dominant idea. Another 34% believe evolution was quote unquote guided by God. That's fully 71% of Americans rejecting the scientific explanation of our origins. That's not a curiosity, that's a crisis. And it's a crisis that too many science educators are complicit in coddling out of fear of offending the faithful or disrupting the status quo. We must stop coddling religious indoctrination. You cannot teach science while pretending supernatural explanations deserve equal time. That is not education, it's capitulation. That's why this is not a debate, this is a protest. And speaking of coddling, I heard there might be some journalists amongst us today, some members of the press who are covering this event. How will you tell the story of today? Will you give equal weight to the pseudoscience of AIG and the statements of credentialed evolutionary biologists? Will you default to the tired both sides framing as if we're debating the color of the sky? Because let me be clear, there are not two equal sides here. One side is rooted in centuries of observation, evidence, and peer-reviewed discovery. The other side built a theme park where dinosaurs sail on Noah's Ark and carnivorous beasts bunk next to kangaroos like it's a biblical zoo cruise. Most of the people in this region aren't going to find this protest on YouTube. They aren't following evolutionary biologists on Twitter, but they will watch the local news. They will read their community paper. And what you say or fail to say will either challenge them or reinforce their delusion. Please don't pretend neutrality in the face of lies. That's not objectivity, it's abdication. Need I remind you, this is not a debate, this is a protest. I have debated creationists before, and some of you have too. But I urge you, ask yourselves whether that energy is being used effectively. Let's resist the temptation to treat these engagements like sport. For those of us with relative privilege, it can be thrilling to demolish bad arguments. But for queer people, people of color, disabled people, and others who are the targets of this religiously justified hate, this isn't just rhetoric, it's existential. It's life and death. We have to center those who are actually harmed by these beliefs, not the ego of the debater, not the spectacle of the live stream. Let's stop wasting our breath in the comments threads, arguing with people who think fossils were planted by the devil. Let's instead invest in the people trying to survive in the shadow of this ideology. This is not a debate. This is a protest. Before I go, I want to offer you a story, a recommendation. If you haven't seen Midnight Mass, the Netflix series by Mike Flanagan, I urge you to watch it. It's not just horror. It's a meditation on belief, on how desperation for salvation can make us complicit in monstrosity. A small town falls under the spell of a charismatic preacher. He performs miracles, he quotes scripture, he promises eternal life, but behind it all is something parasitic, something that consumes the faithful even as it claims to uplift them. And that, to me, is exactly what we're witnessing here at the Ark Encounter and the continued rise of Christo-fascism in this country. This isn't just about bad science. It's a parasitic movement that drains our communities emotionally, financially, and intellectually. It exploits wonder to instill fear. It replaces curiosity with dogma. It sucks the oxygen out of the room and calls it gospel. So if you do watch Midnight Mass, see it not just as a story about vampires, but as a parable, a mirror, because we are living in a time when people are so desperate for meaning, they'll drink poison if it's labeled holy water. The question the show asks, and the one I'll leave you with, is this: what kind of resurrection is worth dying for? And what kind of truth is worth living for? This is not a debate. This is a protest. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jay. I appreciate you. I want to let everybody know that if you need to go to the restroom, we've got Will over here. Will ferry us over to the place to go do the thing. So if you need to go do that voodoo, let us know. I want to take a moment, just because I can. I want to say thank you. Well, first of all, we got a Black Non-Believers table over here with some merch. There you go. So if you need some merch, they want to sing with me. Yeah, so we've got some merch over here, and I want to take a moment to thank Hangberg and the all the support that he's given and his little organization has done. Thank you very much, Hangberg. And also, yes, they're here. And also, I want to take a moment to say thank you to everybody else who's shown up. We've got people from all over the country who've come in and are visiting with us, and I very much appreciate you. Remember, drink lots of water. Everybody has sunscreen. Elliot is here. Elliot, all right, so everybody, thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mark Olson. He's out here somewhere, ready to go do that voodoo. There he is.
All right, Mark.
Woo! Come on up here, Mark. Goodness gracious. So thank you, everybody. And again, Will is right here. He's ready to haul you off to the little boys' room, little girls' room. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Get my paperweight here. So, hello. Hot as hell today, and according to Ken Ham, I'm going to find out what that really feels like someday. But for the moment, we're all good. My name is Mark Alsip. I'm a former young Earth creationist. I was indoctrinated into Ken Ham's religion around the age of 6 when a Sunday school teacher told me that rainbows did not exist until after a flood. Now, I love Jesus. I love God. I love my family. Behind that came in third with science. So I raised my hand and explained the physics of rainbows to the Sunday school teacher. She stopped the class and shouted, "Mark is full of Satan. Satan is speaking through Mark." Kids started scattering. Mark is dragging him to hell. Why? Because I said something in the Bible was not true. Her argument was that if anything in the Bible can be found and not be true, then everything in the Bible can be doubted. Where have you heard that? Over on the other side of the road, right? On the gangplank. They tell me that we're indoctrinating children over here. I've never had anyone threaten to burn me in hell for getting a math problem wrong. I proved 1 = 0 in calculus class once. Got a bad grade, but I didn't get burned. If you want to see indoctrination, you need to look on the other side of the road. They say that we're brainwashing our children. I've never had anybody promise me a cloud in heaven with wine or grape juice if I was little. If I could conjugate a French verb correctly. On that side of the road, you get your cloud in heaven if you agree with everything they say. That's brainwashing. If you want to see brainwashing, other side of the road. They tell us we have bad morals here. Really? What about drowning a bunch of innocent little babies and kids in their crib in a flood that they had nothing to do with? Why not just snap your fingers and take them to heaven? Where's your morals there? Let me quote Leviticus 25, 44 through 46, or I'll summarize it. You can take from people among you of other nations as slaves to pass down as property. Just don't take people from your own country. That's God speaking. Bad morals? Seriously? Bad morals? Striking down the firstborn children in Egypt? Telling God, or bragging to Moses that he's going to harden Pharaoh's heart. So Pharaoh's not going to let those people go. He's going to kill them. He knows ahead of time and he's bragging about it. Don't tell me about bad morals. Good Lord. I've seen some answers in Genesis literature that takes the LGBTQ community. This is hot, the hard in the seat, guys. They take them, atheists, agnostics, people of other religions, other denominations, humanists, whatever an evolutionist is. What the hell is an evolutionist? I think they mean scientists. They lump them all in with pedophiles. I got to tell you about pedophiles. I grew up with one. I had a neighbor who repeatedly raped me between ages of 6 and 7. This guy went to church every Sunday. He was a young earth creationist. He believed that dinosaurs walked with humans. He made me promise. He took advantage of my love for Jesus that I would never talk about this because God would strike me dead. If you want to find pedophiles, don't look here, my friends. Look on that side of the road. Because there's not a week that goes by that I don't pick up the Friendly Atheist newsletter and see another evangelical preacher or another Catholic priest raping a kid, and then they get forgiven for it. And this is where I'm going to quote Alanis Morissette. Isn't it ironic? Isn't it ironic that my abuser just has to go to the other side of the road and say he's sorry, and he gets to go to heaven? But no matter how much good I do for anyone, I'm going to burn in hell. There's your morals for you. No thanks. I don't need this. I'm just going to go with it. So on that side of the road, they get millions of dollars of tax breaks. There's something you may not have heard called the Kentucky Faith Trail, where Kentucky put another $300,000 into the kitty. They then, people don't know this, charged $2,000 more to each of the 11 Christian-only sites on the Faith Trail. Where did all that money go? I've been doing FOIA requests against the Ark Encounter. The top 2 beneficiaries. Anybody want to guess what they are? Answers in Genesis, Ark Encounter, and the Creation Museum. Nobody else, according to their own numbers, even comes close. And now they spent, I forget how many $100 million on classrooms in Erlanger, and they're fighting to keep public education. They want to get rid of it, basically. So, yeah, I'm off the trail now. I'm off my speech, so we'll get through this. They're trying to get public school vouchers so just religions can be taught. And Ken Ham has his classroom set up. He's all ready for this. He's drooling for it. And just for grins, look up tail number N190JK, the Answers in Genesis plane that flies to the Cayman Islands once a month and then flies back after staying on the tarmac long enough to drop something off. So I'm going to segue into the end here. I'm a little disorganized still, but like I said, we'll get through it. There's some pretty dark times ahead of us right now. Things are not going well for our side. So what can we do? I don't want to end this on a bad note. Well, one thing we can do is what we're doing today. Gather together, make friends, make connections. Don't let your motivation end after just today. Stick together. Introduce yourself. There are a lot of great people all year long. Let's remember there are more of them than there are more of us than there are of them. And if we can keep this growing, we can eventually come out on top. So I'd like to thank Joe, the Kentucky Atheist, especially, Pangburn, Tri-State Free Thinkers, all the great speakers, all the great people we have out here. And I'm really proud to be with you here today on this side of the road. Thank you.
All right, I've always wanted to do this. Our next speaker needs no introduction. I'm sorry. I can get over here, man. You guys know John. This is a Godless Engineer from John from Godless Engineer. Yeah, I do.
All right, welcome everybody to the protest. I do appreciate everybody that's putting this on and everybody that's coming out to listen and watch and everything like that. So at first glance, the Creation Museum and Ark Encounter may seem like harmless religious attractions, quirky roadside spectacles meant to entertain the faithful. But a far more insidious purpose lies beneath their animatronic dinosaurs and fabricated history. These sprawling monuments to ignorance are not just relics of fringe belief. They are rallying points for Christian nationalism, graven testaments to an extreme fundamentalist ideology that seeks to rewrite reality itself. Wrapped in the guise of faith, they reject science, pluralism, and historical truth, pushing instead a rigid theocratic vision where scripture overrules fact. This isn't just about myth over reason. It's about power. House Speaker Mike Johnson, a powerful elected official, has embraced this agenda, praising the Ark Encounter and Creation Museum as, quote, one way to bring people to this recognition of the truth. That what we read in the Bible are actual historical events. His endorsement is not an outlier. It's a red flag. These attractions are not mere curiosities. They are symbols of a broader movement to dismantle the secular foundations of our nation and turn our country into a Christian theocracy, an idea our founding fathers resoundingly rejected. Through Answers in Genesis, this movement actively works to erode the separation of church and state, replacing scientific reality and human rights with rigid religious dogma. The question before us is not whether we should take this seriously. The question is whether we are willing to fight back before their vision becomes our reality. Answers in Genesis is not merely promoting a theological perspective. They demand that society be reordered to fit a biblical worldview dictated by rigid fundamentalism. Their vision is not a suggestion. It is a mandate. In their world, the earth is only 6,000 years old. Every living thing was divinely handcrafted in its current form, and human progress must be shackled to ancient texts rather than guided by evidence and reason. This dogma stands in direct defiance of science, history, and reality itself. But AIG does not care about reality. It cares about control. To them, truth is not determined by facts, but by faith. And faith must be enforced, not just followed. Their ultimate goal is not just to believe, but to ensure that everyone else does too. This drive to impose religious doctrine onto society is nothing new. In the 1980s, Senator Jesse Helms waged a relentless war against secularism, insisting that he was sent to Washington to fight against, quote, the forces who have driven God out of the classroom. Helms embodied the core mission of Christian nationalism, to erase the line between church and state and force an entire nation to bow before their version of God. That crusade has only intensified since. In 2022, Representative Lauren Boebert dismissed the very foundation of religious freedom, sneering that she was, quote, tired of this separation of church and state junk, declaring instead that, quote, the church is supposed to direct the government. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene took it even further, rallying conservatives to, quote, be the party of nationalism. We should be Christian nationalists. These statements are not political rhetoric. They are marching orders. This is an open call to dismantle
be supple, would you?
democracy and replace it with
Is your name
theocratic
supple?
rule.
Casey.
And AIG, through its
I was hoping
museums,
somebody was
its
gonna
media
show up and look a
empire,
lot
and
like
its relentless assault on education, is working hand in hand with these very politicians to ensure that future generations are indoctrinated into and controlled by this twisted vision of America. Ken Ham has directly stated that the Bible provides absolute truth in all areas of life, and current politicians often enforce this notion in their public policy. Speaker Mike Johnson's career is a prime example of this. Johnson has endorsed AIG's museums and attractions and fought to allow creationist teachings in Louisiana schools. Mike Johnson's theocratic goals are evident in using legal tools to privilege a specific religious doctrine. This erodes the wall between church and state, which is their ultimate goal. Past elected officials pushed for school prayer and resisted secular education by attempting to force God back to the forefront of public school teaching. Currently, elected officials are doing the same thing, but are louder and are gaining more support by the day. Boebert's open rejection of church-state separation shows the intent to undo the constitutional guardrails that prevent government endorsement of religion. According to Christian nationalists like Boebert, Green, Johnson, Helms, the government should serve God's law first and put civil liberties and pluralism in the back seat. Instead, legislation is being driven by Scripture. How long will it be until Congress passes laws that rape survivors should marry their rapists? Or fathers can sell their daughters into sexual slavery, or reinstitutionalizing the slave trade? How long till Congress deems women to be property owned by men? How long until the American experiment ends and God's law reigns at the hands of a tyrant king, regressing our society back to a time where religious beliefs were the guidestone? Answers in Genesis denies scientific reality in favor of a set of dogmatic religious beliefs that have been consistently proven wrong. This rejection of a scientifically informed worldview has persisted in popular culture over 100 years. 100 years ago, during the Scopes monkey trial, William Jennings Bryan said, "It is better to trust in the rock of ages than to know the age of the rocks." And I hate to break this to all the creationists out there, but the age of the rocks makes the supposed rock of ages irrational as an explanation for the diversity of life on Earth. Fast forward to 1980, Ronald Reagan appeased the creationist crowd by asserting that evolution, quote, is a theory only and not the best explanation for the diversity of life on this planet. Reagan appeased the creationists by claiming that scientists have found, quote, significant flaws in it, and that if evolution is taught in schools, so should the Bible. Today, still, the creationists want to indoctrinate our children into the same ignorance that plagues their cognitive abilities. And bills are being introduced in state legislatures all over the country right now to do just that. Reagan wasn't the only creationist to secure key roles in the government to advance this agenda. In 2012, the sitting
Dave Murphy had we sweating together.
Right.
All that stuff out of his town about evolution and embryology and the Big Bang Theory, all that is lies from the straight from the pit of hell. It's not just biological science that's currently under attack either. Environmental science is also in their crosshairs with plans to defund NOAA and other climate science research, which will inevitably lead to ecological disaster. Just this week, Texas officials said that funding and regulation cuts resulted in poor forecasting, which led to more than 50 people dying, including 15 children, from flooding in central Texas. 20 little girls are still missing from their summer camp. If anti-science leaders weren't running the show right now, the NWS would have been able to properly forecast, and these people, these kids, could still be alive. Senator James Inhofe cited Genesis when he argued that it's outrageous and arrogant to think humans can alter God's climate because God was supposedly still up there controlling it. Just this morning, I saw Marjorie Taylor Greene announce her new bill banning chemtrails, which is an anti-science conspiracy theory. Republican leaders are consistently fighting these invisible demons while ignoring climate science, and it's doing real damage. Representative John Shimkus even insisted in a congressional hearing that, quote, the earth will end only when God declares it's time. Man will not destroy this earth. These are individuals who make decisions that impact everyone. Currently, there are about 20 creationist lawmakers elected to office pushing legislation to defund the Department of Education, making religious charter schools publicly funded institutions, and pushing legislation to display the 10 Commandments in all public school classrooms. This Christian nationalist takeover of our educational institution cannot continue because they are normalizing the same information pushed by this monstrous monument of ignorance. This same information promoted by Ken Ham through Answers in Genesis has convinced 37% of the general population, which is approximately 99 million Americans, that a cosmic wizard with enchanted mud created humans. Furthermore, the ignorance pushed by the Ark Encounter and the Creation Museum keeps 190 million people convinced that evolution needed a magical mage to guide the process, which not only impacts their religious beliefs, but also how they see everything. And this fundamentalist ideology also seeks to deny the reality of human diversity. The LGBTQ plus community is continuously under attack by fundamentalists. In the 1980s, Senator Jesse Helms said, every Christian ethic cries out for me to call a perverted human being a perverted human being. I guess that doesn't include people in the conservative and Republican Party. Helms joins Ken Ham and his museums when they blame the LGBTQ plus community for societal degeneration. In the past, they fought against AIDS funding, and now they push to remove the Affordable Care Act's requirement that HIV prevention drugs be covered for free. This reveals an agenda that actively works to eradicate the LGBTQ plus community from society. Conservatives have not relented in their fight against human rights. If anything, they've intensified their efforts. In 2004, Mike Johnson wrote that the LGBTQ community as a group could destroy, quote, the entire democratic system if they were normalized. As we have recently seen, the biggest threat to our democratic system of governance is the actions of Speaker Johnson and conservative politicians, ushering in a Christian nationalist theocracy. They have been planning this theocratic takeover since the Reagan and Helms administrations. It's been 45 years of playing the long game, and it's well past time we do something to stop it. So now is the time to stand up and use your voice. Stand up and use your voice against stripping science out of classrooms. Stand up and use your voice against laws written in church pews and not in Congress. Stand up and use your voice against prayer turned into policy and scripture turned into statute. Stand up and use your voice before the wall between church and state is raised, before liberty bows to dogma, and before America becomes the Republic of Gilead. Stand up, use your voice, do it now, because we may not be able to do it tomorrow.